Hi, in this video I'm going to walk you through a problem that's very similar to your homework problem. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create an IPO chart, input process output IPO or IPO chart. And this is how we work out our algorithm. And we always start with these. We use these then to change in the code eventually and turn it into a program. But we always start with our planning. This is really, really important. The more time you spend planning, the less time you'll spend coding and the less mistakes you're going to have. So this is on page 44, it's problem number 9, and I typed the problem in here. So this is a problem where the user wants a program that's going to display a bill. And what they do at this company is they type envelopes and pages. So here it just explains what the problem is. And what we have to do with the IPO chart is we have to figure out what to put in these columns, the input, the process, and the output. And that's kind of the hardest part. It's a lot like a word problem, a math word problem. There's usually extra words in there that can get confusing. So we're going to try and pull that out. When you start this, you always start with your output. So what is a program supposed to display? If you don't know what the output is, what the program's supposed to do, you're never going to be able to come up with a good algorithm. So let's do this with a little bit of color. And the output. So as we go through this, accountant wants a program, help her prepare a bill. Okay, she's going to enter the number of pages, number of type pages. Well, if she's entering it, that's not output, that's input. Here's the output. The program should calculate and display. What the program displays is the output. So the output display the amount due for the envelopes, the amount due for the pages, and the total amount due. Okay. So that's our output. So down here, I just transferred that. The amount due for the envelopes, amount due for envelopes, the amount due for the pages, amount due for pages, and the total amount due. Those are the three things that we need to display. That's our output. After we figure out the output, then we figure out the input. What is the user going to have to enter to get the output? What information do you need to do this processing? So let's color code that too. We'll use yellow. And as we go through here, she will enter the number of typed envelopes, the number of typed pages, okay, what she's going to enter, and the charge per type page. Okay. And then I transferred those things down here, number of envelopes, number of pages, charge per envelope, charge per page. You can change the names a little bit. They don't have to be exactly the same. That's what's up here in your problem specification. They actually get a little bit too long. Okay. Now, after we do that, we have to figure out the processing. The processing, it's how do we get our input and change it to the output. So as we go through, you're always going to start with input. Your cycle is input, process, output. So what's the first thing you have to do? You have to get the input from the user. So here is our input. Enter the number of envelopes, enter the number of pages, enter the charge per envelope, enter the charge per page. So that's what the user is going to do. Then we're going to take that information and we're going to do our calculations. So how do you figure out how much to charge for an envelope or the amount due for an envelope? Well, it's the number of envelopes times the amount that you charge per envelope. Okay, so amount due for envelopes. Amount due for pages, well, that's the number of pages times the charge per page. Then the total amount due, well, that would be the amount due for the envelopes plus the amount due for the pages. So we've just done our calculations. This is our processing part. So if you want to color code it again, there's your input. We don't have a color for processing. Let's make that green. And then the output's what's going to be displayed. So these are the things we calculated, and now we need to display those. Now, oftentimes people get confused with this part, the desk checking. The desk checking is not really part of the IPO chart, but this is how you figure out if what you've done is correct. We're going to proof our algorithm or our formulas and make sure that we did the right thing. So I like to add an extra chart at the bottom for that. So here's my desk checking. What we do here is we list all the fields or the variables that we're going to use in our program. The variables are the places the data is stored. So we have number of envelopes from the input, number of pages from the input, charge per envelope from the input, charge per page from the input. And then this is what we're going to display, our output. So again, we can use our color coding. This is our input, and then this is our output. And up here in the problem, they told us what numbers to use for the desk checking. They said use 50, 100, 10 cents, and 25 cents for the number of typed envelopes, typed pages, charge per envelope, and charge per page. So that's the data that we're going to use when we test it. So what do we do when we test? We use our calculator. Okay. So as we go through, we check our algorithm, enter the number of envelopes, number of pages, charge per envelope, charge per page. Okay, we've gotten all our input, our 4 things. Now, the amount due for envelopes equals the number of envelopes times the charge per envelope. So down here we have the number of envelopes, that's 50, times the charge per envelope, which is 10. And so that's $5. Correct? Correct. So does that make sense? If you figure that out, 50 envelopes, 10 cents per envelope, that should be $5. Okay, now let's test the amount due for the pages. So what do we have here? Number of pages, 100. And then we do that by the charge per page, which is 25 cents. And that's $25. And that's a reasonable amount. And then the total amount due, it says total amount due is the number of envelopes plus the amount due for the pages. So we have 5, and we're going to add that to 25, and that's 30. Okay. So for every problem, what they're going to do is they're going to give you one set of data to test, okay? And then you can make up your own data and test that also. So oftentimes when we test, we want to use weird numbers, you know, make sure how this turns out, like 0. I have 0 envelopes, and I have 0 pages, and I charge 20 cents per envelope. Whoops. And 50 cents per page. How's that going to work out? Well, okay, amount due for the envelopes, 0 times 20 is 0. Okay. Amount due for the pages, 0 times 50 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. So that works out. My algorithm works. That would be correct. If you don't have any typed pages or typed envelopes, 0 would be the amount due. And then you can try it with some other numbers. You know, whatever, 10, 10. And you can make up numbers whatever you think you should charge. So here, if we use these numbers, 10 times 50, that would be $5. And then 10 times $1 would be 10, and that would be 15. So we've checked it, and it seems to be the proper amounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and I'm going to make this available for you so you can see the document yourself. And hopefully that'll help you to work through your problems. Remember, when you do them, always start with the output, then the input, and then try and do your processing. Figure out how you're going to turn input into output, the steps that you have to go through. Okay,